Alright, so what I wanted to do in this last video is really kind of run through a small project that really just kind of covers all the basics of what we talked about up to this point. Because throughout this course really just kind of broke down each step of the procedure when you're working with 3D, but now I just want to have a little quick run through in a sense of what we've talked about, and just so you can see it in action in real time in a sense. So I've got a blank document here. I'm just going to go ahead and start with that, and let's go ahead and start creating some shapes. I'm going to go over here and grab my rectangular shape tool, and let's go ahead and create a new blank layer, and I'm just going to create a series of random blocks that some are just long and narrow, some are very short. I'm really kind of keeping the middle area here empty because I'm going to be adding a text element right here in this open area here. So I'm just kind of trying to keep a lot of these elements really small. I don't want to do too many. I think that'll be plenty. And of course I can move them around and do whatever I want here. And let's actually scale this one a little bit here. That way. So just kind of some randomly scattered objects there, just to give you an idea. So I'm going to go ahead and fill this layer with black. Or rather, let's just do gray, so you can see what's going on here. So I'm going to go and select all of those shapes and just go into the 3D menu and choose 3D extrusion from selected path. And you can see it'll go ahead and extrude those shapes there. There we go. And I can move my view around. You can see what it's done here is taken those shapes and extruded them. We've got a number of random cool things happening here. It looks pretty good. So let's go ahead and add some properties here to this. I'm actually going to go into the layer 1 here, and you notice we've got all the different surfaces we've been talking about. So what we're seeing here in this case is the front face and the extrusion, or the sides rather. And first thing is I'm going to go and do that front inflation. And I'm going to add a reflection property to this, very similar to the one that I had on that ring in that other file. So I'm going to actually go into my properties panel here. Let's go and down here to where it says environment. I'm going to go ahead and choose load texture. Now I've already got this image sitting on my desktop, and there it is. It's that Chrome image I've got there. I'm going to click open. And adding the environment isn't enough. You actually have to increase the reflection setting here. So I'm going to boost that up, and now you can see it appears in the front face of the image. If I were to move my view around, you can see the reflection is moving around in that front area. Not bad. Okay. Now what I want to do, let's bring it back to the front there, is apply that same thing to the extrusion, or the sides here. So once again, I got layer 1 extrusion material selected. I'm going to go to load texture. Find that texture, open it, and up the reflection. And if I move this around again, there you can see the reflection in that shape. So that looks pretty good. All right. So bring this back to the front face here. And to make it darker, remember I created it with gray. Remember how I could get a nice chrome look if I had the ring? Remember I had the ring in a nice darker color? Let's go ahead and fill those with black. So in here in the layers panel, I've got the layer 1, which is the front face, and then the layer 1 extrusion, which is the sides here. I'm going to double click on each of those, fill those files with black, close them, save the changes, and that's going to make it, that chrome really shine a little bit better there. There we go. So now it's really coming out. Now the lines on that chrome texture are a little bit more pronounced than I would like them to be. So let's do this. I'm going to go into that same layers panel. And you'll notice below those diffuse layers, we've got the background, which is this texture map, or rather this environment map that we've got applied to these images. So I'm going to double click on that and put a blur on it. Let's go to filter, blur, and let's do a motion blur on this. Something, I'll do about 100. No, not even that. Let's do like 50. I don't want to get completely rid of it. I just want to kind of take some of that detail of those lines out. So once again, close it, save those changes, and there you can see the reflection is there. It's a little less pronounced than before. It's probably a little bit more blur than I would want. Let's take it back a couple of steps, and let's take it even less. Let's go with 25 this time. There we go. So there we have that. Okay. Now, the shapes themselves are extruding quite a bit, but I maybe think I want to extrude them a little bit more. So I'm going to go into that layer 1 and take the extrusion depth a little bit deeper. So it makes those shapes a little bit further back in space, giving me a very interesting perspective on that. That looks pretty good. Now, let's add a text element. I'm going to grab my text layer or text tool and click and establish a type layer. We're going to add some text. Remember, I had this open area inside of these shapes, and that was left intentionally because I'm going to add a text element in here. So it's going to go ahead and launch my text tool. Let's go ahead and do this. And we'll just go ahead and type. We got the word extreme. It is Extreme 3D. I'm going to change that font. I'm going to do my favorite so far with 3D is this Euro style. It gives me a nice bold look there. There we go. And there we have that. Now, this I'm going to go ahead and convert to 3D. I'm just going to go ahead and do a 3D new 3D extrusion from selected layer. And then I'm going to go ahead and merge it with these shapes in the background here. So, good idea before you do this. Let's go to File, Save As, and just go ahead and save this 3D new. Now I'm going to go ahead and select both of those layers, go to 3D, merge 3D layers. So that text got thrown back in the background a little bit further. So let's go ahead and select that item and just drag it forward. So I click and drag down with the slide forward tool and it brings it forward. There we go. And if I move this around, you can see that there's that element and there's the text inside there. It's actually a little bit further up because we're actually going to close in on this shape here. So let's actually take that text layer and push it back a little bit. And now it's getting in shadow, but that's okay. We're going to tweak the lighting just a little bit. So let's actually rotate our view and see what we've got here. So the text is sitting back further back in there. I might even want it to go a little bit further back. There we go. Okay. So now, everything's looking pretty good. I'm going to actually change my angle of view here. So let's actually get the rotation of the overall view. So I'm just going to use my rotate camera tool and just kind of tilt this a little bit. And then notice I'm using the 3D tools up here in the options bar. And I'm just going to use this one right here, which is the slide 3D object, and click off the object and click and drag down, and that's going to bring it forward here. I can go really extreme. And you can actually animate this too. You can actually use your timeline to do 3D animations like this. So you'll actually go, wow. Okay. So position this right about here. Now the lighting is an issue because the text is currently in a shadow. So let's go ahead and take this and turn off the infinite light. And let's add a point light. And there it is right in front of the object. So let's actually take that and push it forward a little bit more. Just put it right about here. And let's take the overall view. Once again, slide it forward. Maybe even rotate the angle a little bit here. And I'm going to do a quick render and see what we've got so far. I'm going to do Shift Option Command R. And we should see some reflections going on here and some really cool things happening, and that looks pretty good. So just taking some simple shapes and extruding them, and I'm tweaking it now, just kind of moving things around. I can actually move the text around. If I wanted to change the angle of just that text, just take the rotate tool, click directly on the 3D object, and when it selects it, you can actually just click off to the side of it and rotate it a little bit. Let's maybe bring it forward a little bit more. Do a quick render there and see what we get. So it's reflecting a little bit differently. We've got some interesting things going on. So a lot of different cool things we can do with this. And if we added to add maybe one little final touch to this, why not add some sparks? Because we are in Photoshop, so we can add things like this and make it a little bit more interesting to blend with our 3D layer. Let's make this and change the blend mode of this to screen and make that blend a little bit better. And once again, I'm going to go back and do a render, Shift Option Command R, and it's going to go ahead and complete the render on this. And in just a few minutes, we've gone from very basic objects, very basic squares and rectangles, and a basic text layer, and gone into that third dimension with some simple reflections and light properties in here, and just playing around with it. At this point, I would definitely go in there and probably do some more tweaking and playing around with it, but you can see how complex you can get with 3D in just a few simple steps. And now it's doing a little bit of more render, so I can get a little bit more going on here. But think about everything we've talked about in this course and what we can apply to this. We can play around with the lighting. We can add bump maps and textures and really dress this up and make it look really, really cool, and done in half the time it's taken in any previous version of Photoshop. Again, in CS5, we had Repoussé. And I gotta be honest, I would not have even allowed myself to be this adventurous with 3D in CS5. But the fact that we have the new Mercury engine and things are flowing much, much smoother here in CS5, it can afford you to be that much more adventurous, and hopefully you'll discover a whole new area of creativity here inside Photoshop. So if you're brand new to 3D, I hope this gives you enough creative energy to really get started and play around with these features and really see what you can do with them. If you've been playing with 3D for a while, I guarantee you're going to love it that much more, because things are getting that much easier and that much smoother, and we're only going to create that much better 3D stuff from here on out. I hope you guys enjoyed this. We'll see you around next time.